So you're thinking about bringing your business to Japan? That's awesome. But before you jump in, there's a really important tax rule you've got to know about. And that's what we're here to do today. Break down Japan's thin capitalization rule in a way that's super simple and makes perfect sense, especially for foreign companies.
All right, let's get into it. Here's a quick look at what we're going to cover. First, why does this rule even exist? Then, what is it? Who's it for? How does it work? And the big one, what happens if you break it? We'll wrap up with a quick summary at the end. Let's go.
First things first, why is this rule on the books at all? Well, it turns out it's designed to solve a very specific problem. A problem that has to do with how you get a new company off the ground.
Okay, let's play this out. Imagine your parent company, based somewhere else in the world, decides to launch a subsidiary in Japan. That new company needs cash to get started, right? Well, there are basically two main ways to get that money over.
Option 1, you make a capital investment. You're basically buying stock in your own company. Option 2, you give it a loan, which of course has to be paid back with interest. Now, they might sound pretty similar, but when it comes to taxes, they are completely different worlds.
And here's where it gets really interesting. See, when that Japanese company pays interest back on the loan, that interest payment is treated as a business expense. And that's huge because it's tax deductible. It actually shrinks the company's taxable income. But dividends from a capital investment? Nope. Those are paid out after taxes, so you get zero tax benefit.
You can probably see where this is going, right? A foreign parent company could be really tempted to fund its Japanese subsidiary with a ton of debt, like 99% debt and just a tiny sliver of actual capital. Why? So it can pull profits out of Japan as tax-deductible interest payments. And that whole strategy, that's exactly what thin capitalization is.
So, to stop people from using this as a tax loophole, the Japanese government stepped in with a specific countermeasure. Let's take a look at how they decided to level the playing field.
And here it is, the thin capitalization rule. Now, it doesn't say you can't get loans from your parent company. Not at all. It just says, hey, there's a limit. A limit on how much of that interest you can actually write off on your taxes. Think of it like a fairness test.
So you might be wondering, does this rule apply to just any old business loan? No way. It's very, very specific. It's aimed at a particular relationship between the company giving the loan and the one receiving it.
The rule really only kicks in for loans from what's called a foreign controlling shareholder. Your overseas parent company that owns at least 50% of the shares. But it can also cover sister companies or even outside loans if the parent company guarantees them. It's all about that related party connection.
Okay, so how do the tax authorities figure out if a company's capital is too thin? This isn't some fuzzy subjective thing. It's actually a really simple math problem.
Before we can get to the test, though, we need one number from your balance sheet, and that's your company's equity. The easiest way to think about it is that it's the company's net worth. You just take everything it owns, its assets, and subtract everything it owes, its liabilities. What's left over? That's your equity.
All right, the whole rule, the heart of this entire thing, really just comes down to this one single number, 3. If you remember nothing else, remember the number 3.
So here's the test itself. It's one simple question. Is the amount of debt you have from your foreign parent company greater than 3 times your company's equity? If the answer to that question is yes, then the thin cap rules are going to apply to you.
Okay, let's say your debt is more than 3 times your equity. You failed the test. What happens now? What's the damage? Let's walk through exactly what that means for your bottom line.
Now, it's not like they disallow all your interest. It's a 3-step process. First, your company gets flagged. Second, you figure out exactly how much of your debt is over that 3-to-1 line. And third, the interest you paid on just that excess amount, well, that's no longer tax deductible.
And here's the bottom line. That interest they disallowed, it gets added right back into your profits when it's time to calculate your taxes. So your taxable income goes up, which means your final corporate tax bill in Japan goes up. Plain and simple.
Right about now, you might be thinking, hold on a second. A 3-to-1 ratio is completely unrealistic for my industry. If you're in real estate or finance, you might operate on much higher levels of debt. It's a great point, and thankfully the tax code has an answer for that.
Yes, there is an important exception. You can actually make the case that your debt level is normal for your industry. You do this by finding a comparable Japanese company, one that's in the same business, and you look at their ratio. If their ratio is, say, 5-to-1, you might be able to use that number as your benchmark instead of the standard 3-to-1. Just be warned, you'll need really solid proof and documentation to make that fly.
We've covered a lot of ground here,
So let's just take a second to recap and lock in the most important things you need to remember.
So, let's boil it all down. Remember the why? This is all about stopping tax avoidance. Remember the test, that magic 3-to-1 ratio. Remember the consequence. If you fail to test, you pay more tax. And the most crucial part, remember the action. You need to think about this stuff from day one. Be proactive about how you're funding your Japanese business.
And that really brings us to the final question you need to ask yourself. This isn't just some boring technical rule. It's a real test of your financial strategy. So, is your company's capital structure set up for success in Japan, or is it a potential landmine? Honestly, the best next step is always to talk it through with a professional tax advisor. Thanks for watching.